talking about closing the gap, optimizing customer conversion. We're at that stage of that sales funnel, right? So your sales funnel is that place that your customer, moves down that path from that place of, hey, I don't know you, to getting to know you, to being really interested in your process, to then, moving to that place of, hey, all right, cool, maybe I'm ready to buy, maybe I want to make a decision, and kind of moving through along. So sales funnel, right? So if you are not familiar, you should be familiar by now. We want you to go back. We talked, this has been 4 sessions already. This is our 4th session on it. So we have 3 other videos. We focus on brand awareness, interest, decision, and today we're talking about that customer conversion in the sales. When we talked about the sales funnel, we've talked about it in 3 ways, right? So from the business standpoint, we are talking about the business's action, right? So there's an action for the business, there's a expected customer reaction, and then there's a KPI associated with it. So that's how we're going to continue the conversation. So when we get to that place of customer conversion, right, you are creating some type of content, because we talked about the content being the thing that drives the sales funnel. At this point, you're creating some content that talks, or you've created it already, right? That says, hey, now it's time for you to make a purchase, right? You've shared information with them, you've gotten past their pain point, you know that you're the solution, they've checked out a demo, and now you're pushing them. Okay, they checked out the demo, we saw that they took these steps, right? Based on the action I put forward, this is the action I might want them to take. They took these actions. Now it's like, all right, how do we drive them? Are they ready to make that purchase, and driving them to make that purchase? So it depends on how your funnel is set up, right? Are you sending them or driving them to that purchase through email? You could be, they could have taken a demo. After they took the demo, you're like, amazing, they've done their 7-day demo. Let me now send them an email to say, hey, let's take the next step. Are you ready to buy? Maybe you're sending an email to say, book a consultation, free consultation with me. We see you've done the 7-day trial. Let's jump in there and take a look. Maybe you're getting a social media ad, because maybe, again, they've collected that email address. They know what you did, and they're sending you ads that say, hey, we know that you've taken the 7-day demo, so we want to present you with this ad that says, come now, you're ready to buy, book a time with you. So you determine what that conversion is, how you're getting the conversion message out to the customer after they've taken a specific step, right? And you get that message out there. So there's no, we're not telling you, hey, you have to do it via email. We're not saying you have to do it via social media ads. You have to think through these steps. They have to really be intentional. And as you think through the steps, you're like, all right, once they've taken this action, I'm ready for them to try to take this action. And you determine what that looks like. It could be a landing page that you're driving them to. It could be email. It could be a whole host of things, right, that makes sense in the next step. If your sale, for instance, is $50,000, you're probably not going to sell them that in email. You probably need to talk to them, right? You're probably going to get on a call. You might be putting a proposal together. So you have to think about your business model as well, right? If it's simply an e-commerce sale that's $50, that's going to look different from something that's a lot more expensive and the sales cycle that's longer. So what is the customer reaction? At this point, we're looking for the customer reaction to be a sales, to be purchase, to be something that says, yes, I'm ready to take that next step. If the customer is not ready to take that next step, then where do you move them into your funnel, right? Do you determine, hey, these people are in pipeline and still, they've made it this far. We're moving them to pipeline. They're not quite ready yet. Maybe they're ready to make that purchase 3 months from now. Maybe they're doing, research ahead of time. They have all the information. They're trying to make that purchase 3 months from now. So you do have some decisions to make if they don't make the purchase, but if they move forward and make the purchase, amazing. You move the steps forward, you get them to that place of making the purchase. But if they're not ready yet, it's not a complete no, it's a where do they end up in my sales funnel? Are they in a place where I'm talking to them as though we understand you took the demo, we know you're not ready now, give us a little bit more information to understand where you're ready. So building all those things into your sales funnel as well. And then what is the KPI that you're going to measure at this point of the sales funnel? Well, this is where you start measuring the number of sales. This is where you start measuring the number of leads. This is where you start measuring the revenue. You start looking back to say, okay, great. these many people came to my site, 600 people came to my site. Of these 600 people that came to my site, I got maybe 50 leads. Of these 50 leads, I was able to get 10 sales. These 10 sales drove me to revenue of $100,000, right? That's the conversation that you're having when you're looking at that entire funnel and you're connecting everything back to a metric. So each part of that funnel is connected back to a metric that makes sense for your business. So I think that's me for now on the marketing side of it. So thoughts, guys?
I'm going to speak of it from not a sales perspective, but a consumer, from a marketing side, since I'm going next on the sales side. I love this part of marketing because as a consumer, I realize when it's working, when the marketing piece is working in this part of the funnel. And when we're this low and we're just about there, I'm getting the reminders when I've been distracted. I've expressed some interest because I've touched on something throughout that sales journey. So I'm being remarketed, and not just remarketed of, hello, I'm here. Did you forget that you put this shoe in the cart? It is, let me show you it from a different angle. Let me give you something someone else said about it. If, varying different things, not in just one fashion, but I'm marketed to specifically for a specific thing in many different ways to recapture my attention. Someone with that specific company realized that there's many things that may distract us. Let me help bring you back to center and refocus your attention and give you yet another reason in order for you to purchase. So they're coming at me, but not in an irritating way, but in enough frequency that it's in an interesting way that makes me want to continue to click on something to say, yes, I'm still engaged with you. And that's my reaction back to that marketing ad that's come to me. So I appreciate it. I see it and realize from a buyer perspective where that's hit me and how important that is really, even, this jaded person that's been in this business for 20 years, how this is really working in the digital space for me.
It's the equivalent of the follow-up, right? After you've done the meeting with the client, or you started off with your marketing, you did the meeting, you probably submitted a proposal, and now it's just the follow-up. Hi, are you still interested? We spoke about this. Here are all the good things we said about it. Would you like to take that next step? And, sometimes it is said that, success lies in the follow-up, because if you don't take those steps to close that gap, you could end up, the sale could fall through the cracks, right? Because you have to remember your consumer is not just talking to you, first of all, about the same product. And then second of all, the customer right? The customer has all these other things going on. So your sale, while it might be important, it may not be important every second of the day. So it's not something they're thinking about all the time. So you have to make sure that at this point, you're inching ever so closer to that saying yes, and putting the little breadcrumbs, as Michelle is saying, hi, don't forget about me. We spoke about this, all the good things. I'm still here and I'm ready to serve you. That's what this is. It's that little step that closes the gap and says, yes, ready to buy. Very important step.
ABC, right, Michelle? Always be closing. So I think it highlights that at this stage of the funnel, you're making an ask. That's what's clear. You are making an ask, and you're making an ask in several different ways. So you want to make sure that you're putting it to your prospective customer. Listen, you can convert in this way. You can convert in this way. You can convert in another way, right? Whether it's, let's sign a memorandum of agreement. Let's move things forward, take a definitive step. But you may have to ask more than once. So don't be discouraged if you're trying to increase that conversion rate where you're putting forward the opportunity to buy at more places.
Love that. 100%. Customers are liking too, right? All right. So we are moving on now to the sales side of the sales funnel. So I'm going to kick this over to Michelle.
Oh, I love this part of the sales journey, because this is the place when I'm working with my clients and we were speaking of the varying components of that funnel or that journey when we're trying to cross the finish line or really get everything done, that this is the place where a few things need to be said. And I like to say all of the work that we've done throughout the very beginning of the know, like, trust component of the sales journey. This is the commitment time. This is time to marry me. This is time for you to say, yes, I want to invest my more time. I want to invest more of my business. I want to invest my funds and partner with you. And this is, at this stage, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. The reassurance component of it is almost done. We have revalidated, especially in the B2B space that we're speaking to at this stage of the game. We have already reconfirmed that we have, from your business, able to resolve their pain, cure some of their ills. You have the solution for them. And now it's not just a formality, but we are re-solidifying the relationship on both sides of this. So in this, if you're in negotiating, because this is where some of the negotiating components for you come to the table, you may get that final ask from the B2B space for an additional frill or something additional to sweeten the pie in order for them to put their signature on the dotted line. This is the place where your streamlined process for checkout means the most. Your sale will be broken at this stage if you're complicating the sale by not making it easy for them to click on the link and just give you their payment information to move on to the next phase. The multiple payment component is really important. Having a variety of ways for them to pay you, especially if you're trying to attract an international audience, is imperative. The personalization that Tamara spoke of in follow-up in emails and Andrea referred to is important in this stage, that your messaging is quite specific. It's personalized to their specific sale. It's a reminder of information that they said was important to them, that you're reconfirming in their mind and to the varying audiences to say that, yes, it is time for us to move forward in the sale and consider the time sensitivity. I find it really a good idea in the B2B space when you have spoken of time sensitivity, that client wants to get something done by a specific time. And in your service level agreements, you have spoken to, in order for us to get to that space, we will need to start by A, B, or C date. It's important for you to restate those things as a reminder to them that let's make this happen and we can fulfill it in that time, but we need a decision by A, B, or C date. That's really important for you to state. Now, that's your action to them. What you're looking for from a client perspective is for them to give you their payment information and confirm that purchase. You want them to follow up to you in email to say, yes, we will be signing, send this over to me, I will do this, here is the way that we're going to pay, and yes, we want to start by these dates. So those are trigger terms from a B2B space that you're looking to receive back from your client in conversation back, maybe by phone call, maybe by email, from the stakeholders and the decision makers, not just the influencer, but you want that decision maker to be providing that sense of feedback to you. Now, what does that look like as far as KPIs are concerned? This part is really big for all of the people at the table to understand, what does customer conversion look like and what are the signals of yes that you're moving forward in the right place. One of them is cart abandonment rates. Now, what does that mean? That means what are the percentages looking like that people actually say yes versus just putting something in the cart and walking away and not moving forward to providing payment information. What are your conversion percentages looking like? And for multiple spaces for the specific product or service that you were looking for, is it meeting the hurdles that you've put forward to say that, yes, this percentage may be 2%, 3%, 4% conversion or abandonment rate? Am I meeting those numbers, exceeding them, or am I falling short of it? What's your average sales price? That's really important for us to understand. Am I selling what I said I was going to sell in the way that I said I was going to sell it? Those numbers are going to be indicative of whether or not you're moving forward in the right way, or if something new has happened that you need to take a look at and possibly re-engineer on the back end. We spoke of emails. So did people open your emails? Did they click through? What was the click-through ratio, the CTR for your sales cycle, and time on site is really important. So those are just a few of the metrics that I want us to take a look at. And team, what do you think about that part of the sales cycle?
I love it as well, Michelle. And this is where, you know, operation definitely steps in. So in that B2B space, as you were saying, to close that deal, you may have to be sending out contracts. They may need to go back and forth a couple of times. You've got to send out those invoices, right? So you've got to make sure that operationally you're set up for these things to happen quickly, because just a slowdown in that process can lead to a lost sale, right? You're taking too long. Somebody has said yes, and they're still waiting on you to provide them with what they need to move the engagement forward. So I really like that you've outlined all those pieces, because I see that operationally as making sure that you reduce that friction in the buying process, making sure it's easy to say yes and start that engagement. So really good point. Operationally, make sure your payment processing is set up. Of course, make sure you're giving options that are relevant to your target audience, right? So, you know, don't offer payment by credit card if it's amounts where, you know, they won't be paying with credit card, right? They may be doing it by a bank transfer,
Michael,
etc.
one of the important to what you just said in the B2B space with the multitude of people that we're dealing with, it is okay as part of the housekeeping piece of this to ask the B2B companies that you're working with, what's their internal process and decision-making process, the longevity of it, so that you are able to understand, well, if they don't answer me in 24 hours, they have forewarned me that it takes a week, 2 weeks to manage through their process. But it is okay to say, would it be all right with you if I touch base with you on this date and reconfirm what they said to ensure that their process hasn't changed? And also, they have a mental check in their head that you will be following up, because that's a signal to you that something is awry, something's amiss, and you need to follow up, and that it's not gone off board or they've not gone with someone else. It just may be taking it a little longer. So find your words and find a way to comfortably ask those questions so that you know that your sale is on track to where it needs to go, or if you need to recalibrate and work back into the cycle again, because that's money. That's money that is being wasted or jeopardizing the post-sale component that we'll get into next week, and how that works into the continuum.
Michelle, you were speaking my language. I saw things about price, average price. I saw things about that cart abandonment rate is so very important as well, because that's money that's not coming into the bank, right? So you want to understand that metric, because that means something is not clicking, something is not connecting, and you're reaching this point, and the money is just not flowing. So that's a really important metric to understand, because then you're able to fix it to be able to complete the sales. So I like these metrics. So yeah.
100%. CFO approved, so definitely marketing approved. All right. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is actually from the CFO's perspective, right? So what are these metrics that matter when we get to that place of conversion in the sales funnel? Go for it, Andrea.
So when we get to conversion, what the CFO is concerned about is the revenue, the actual sales value. The first thing you want to understand, well, okay, well, what is the value of the sales that is coming in, right? What, how material is it? Is it big sale? Is it small sale? So you want to understand what that revenue figure is like, right? However, you also want to understand, while you understand how much you've made, which is the revenue, you want to understand how much you've lost. So similar to what Michelle was talking about, the abandonment, you want to understand that your close loss ratio, right? How much did you close versus how much did you lose? You want to make sure that ratio is in proportion, because I mean it's a reality. You win some, you lose some. Literally, that's what we say in life, right? But you want to understand what this ratio is, because of course you want the close part of the ratio to be better than the lost part of the ratio. So we'd want to understand, well, yes, we've reached this part of the funnel. Yes, we've closed the sale, but let's also look at what we didn't close as well. That customer acquisition versus sales value, right? This is an important metric, because this is now where you start to value, or you start to quantify how much work you've done versus the reward. That customer acquisition cost is the cost of your work. It's the cost of the effort that you've put out to get to this point. You want to understand this value versus the sales value to see again if it's making sense. You can't spend $10 behind a customer for the customer to only purchase two, right? Purchase $2 worth. That just doesn't make sense, right? So you want to be able to understand how much did we spend to get to this point and how much are we getting. And I think the last thing was the sales cycle length. So those first metrics, we're talking about numbers, right? We're talking about the actual number behind something. This metric now talks about time. I'm concerned about how long did it take us to get here, right? The length of time it took us to move through the funnel to get to this point of conversion. I need to be aware of it because remember all those phases before I was as a CFO, I'm not seeing money coming in just yet. I'm only seeing money going out. So for me, I need to make sure I understand how long does this take, because then that means these phases up to this point have to be funded. They have to be funded from somewhere. So as a CFO, I want to make sure and understand, does it take us 3 months? If in the case of maybe a service-based business, like say a consultancy that have to submit proposals, on average, does it take you 90 days from when you first engage to when you close, right? If you're in another type of business where it's shorter, does it take you 30 days? But no matter what it is, you want to understand how long, because the longer it takes for you to go through those phases and convert, the more money, or at least the more exposed you are in terms of that shortage of money. You need to make sure that you can survive, because through all those other parts of the funnel, there's no incoming as yet. The incoming is up to the conversion. So while we have two different sets of metrics. The first set of metrics, I'm concerned about the numbers in terms of how much the revenue actually was versus how much we spent. So that's a dollar and cents. And then I'm also concerned about the time, because the time now tells me how much money, or at least how long I need to fund this thing for. And of course, it ties back to the first one, because if I know what my customer acquisition cost is, then that's basically the money that I have to set aside to fund this thing all the way through till we get to conversion. So from a finance perspective, we're looking at, yes, dollars and cents, yes, how much money, how much revenue came in, but I'm also very much concerned about how long is it taking us to get here, because the longer it takes, the more exposed we are in terms of finance.
Amen from the sales community over here. Andrew, and this is one of the lovely places that, believe it or not, from a sales perspective, if the relationship is correct internally inside your business, where sales and finance should be vibing real close together, really close together for a couple of reasons, especially in a B2B space. From a sales side, it is beholden upon us to continually communicating with our internal teams as time is moving along. Yes, here is the value of the sale. We're getting closer to a signature and solidifying, yes, we are on time operations, and we will be handing it over to you at this point. Or we have upsold and we have added these components onto the sale. It will add this much to the average sales price, or the length of the contract, or implementation time. This is what it will mean. If from a business perspective, we're doing the sales cycle accordingly, we will have multiple sales in varying stages of the sales cycle as well. So hopefully some of the sales that we're speaking to are return purchasers that are from a B2B space at a place that we've been servicing well, they have been paying throughout, and then we're able to say, hello, our finance team, we are not only going to keep them as a client, we are adding these services on, and we're going to extend the contract length. So they're now able to say, here's the money that will consistently come into the bank. And that customer acquisition cost, because they're a return buyer, is lower than before. So that flow through is a bit better. So from a sales perspective, we need to understand the finance piece of it and able to deliver back to marketing. Yes, this piece worked. The client said this, they saw the ad, or that email reminder did work for us. can we continue on this pace in a different space? So we're all still for talking, even at this stage of the sales funnel. That communication internally is so key, so that we understand what's working and what will help us to move business forward in a much faster fashion.
And definitely, if you're measuring to measure that, so how do we measure that time, that sales cycle time, right? And this is where CRM is really something that you wanna use, because then you can actually see, you can go back and see all the touch points with that prospect until they became a customer. You can start looking at the figures historically over time and say, well, listen, this is how long it generally takes to convert. And if you're straying above or below that mark, are you starting to convert quicker, or is it starting to take longer, and why, and how do you fix it? But definitely this is where operations comes in to inform finance on some of these metrics to determine, okay, as you said, is the CAC versus that sale value, is it measuring up, is it matching up, is the mathing? So definitely a good point, and definitely where operation leans in and says, well, listen, this is all the things that we did to get this, all touch points, there's all the product that was created, all the content that was created, etc., all the meetings that were held with the client back and forth, and we can track that from start to conversion.
This is a well-rounded conversation, if I do say so myself. So we have one more episode left to go in the sales funnel, but it's been a great conversation over these last few weeks.
I'm so happy we afforded our audience the opportunity to allow this to breathe, this sales funnel conversation, because there's so much invested in each one of these stages. And this one, as important as the rest, but this is from a sales perspective where we're at the marry me stage, the commit to me stage is what I say. And don't clench your stomach in this space, but remind yourself of all of the work that you did before. And this is just dotting the I's, crossing the T's with your clients to ensure that you're still keeping in touch with them. You're reminding them of the things that are really important, that they said was important for their business, and how your business is a differentiator from the rest and can really help to resolve their pain, fulfill that need that they have. And you're showing your lanyard to them. And more importantly than speaking with the clients, it's imperative that there's constant communication with your marketing team, with your finance team, with your operations team, because as we move into the rest of the sales continuum, they'll need to understand how the sale that's coming in is really going to happen in the way we said it was going to happen, so that they may do their part in this to continue the client experience, because they're part of this sales cycle as well. As Michael said, ABCs, always be closing. And that closing component doesn't just happen with the sales team. Everybody in the room has a piece of the sales cycle. And it's important that we're successful by keeping each other informed and in the loop.
My final thoughts, definitely use your sales funnel to inform your operational capacity, right? What are you doing? So for every action that you want them to take, what are you providing? What do you have to have set up? As we reach to this point in the sales funnel, we talked about having, that payment processor set up, making it smooth, making sure there's at least friction as possible to close that sale. So definitely use that sales funnel, understand the actions that you want that customer, prospective customer, to take at that point, and let it inform your operations.
And well, always remember the money. While all of this is going on, always remember that, make sure that you're setting aside the right amount of funds to take you through this journey, right? Because it is an important journey. We don't just wake up and pelt something out there and hope people buy. You really have to take the necessary steps. So you want to make sure that you have the capacity to be able to take the customer through all these different steps, no matter what type of business you have. We typically, we talk about the B2B space, but in a B2C space as well, it might be a shorter sales cycle. The customer is probably making their decision a little bit faster because it may be a commodity or a retail space. But the fact is, they are going through it. And those little nuances could be the difference between getting the sale and not getting the sale. as simple as Michelle spoke about, making sure those payment processes and inquiry processes work well. It could be as simple as somebody messaged to ask you, more about your product, and you don't respond, or you respond days later, or you respond in an offhand way. The information is on the page. Well, the reason why I'm asking is because it probably wasn't clear to me, right? So remember those little things. Remember to set aside the finance, as I said, to allow you to have these processes do better for you, so that they can flow through the funnel as efficiently and as maximum as possible, because we're looking for maximum revenue at the end of all of this.
Love that. I think the simple way to put it is that your sales funnel has to be tied to your customer journey, right? It's content that's driving it. It's the right content. It's service that's driving it, right? I think Andrea made a really great point there. If your customer comes back and asks you something in the DM, don't send them back to the page. It wasn't clear to them. And sometimes we get in that habit, right? We're in the habit, well, it's there, it's on the site. This sales funnel is your way to drive business and get the revenue in the bank, but it's this customer that's going through this journey, trying to choose, sometimes confused, trying to figure things out to give you money. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them, and think through everything. The more you can curate the best experience and be there to guide them through the experience, it's the better it will be in the long run. So the sales funnel has to be connected to the customer journey as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that for sure, because it's an important piece, and we always talk about customer journey here.